So, hello everybody. Can someone confirm whether my presentation is visible or not?
Yes, we can see it, Yasser.
All right. So you're gonna be facilitating the chat if any questions or something like that.
Yes,
So
if people have questions, place them in the chat box and then I'll read them
okay.
afterwards to you.
Since my slides will not act as a main component in my presentation, so it's just a guideline for us, just to, if someone joined us, to get to know our own outline and how the session will be run, and how I will, during these 10 minutes, speak about these experience, since it's a reflective remark. So let me firstly introduce myself, and how and why I am interested to talk about anything disability studies related or visually impaired related. So my name is Yasser. I am based in Cairo, where I actually was born and raised, and affiliated to the American University in Cairo. And my area of study in my undergrad degree is in literature and languages, but I dabble into also writing and rhetoric and disability and sociology, digital literacies, education, and many other fields. Perhaps I would. All right. So as I start to engage myself in those areas, I very much felt like there is no sufficient equity around the idea of the representation of assessment when it comes to disability and when it comes to visually impaired people. And I'm here today just to discuss some forms of assessments that I myself was exposed to, and they were alternative, and they facilitated the courses, and they were very much compatible with my needs and with my disability, more closely with my accommodation. Those types of assessments are project-based, such as the digital narrative game. And this digital narrative game was touched by Dr. Maha in our keynote. And I will talk about this later, when it comes to how this game was developed in light of my accommodation and in light of my needs. Then I'll talk about self-assessment parts. And self-assessment parts are also self-assessment parts are also an integral component into alternative assessments. And these self-assessment parts I'll talk about them from two aspects. And those two aspects are digital literacies aspect, the course, the core 296 digital literacy oriented course, and an English language course. And the reason I'm making this distinction is because during those times of those two self-assessment that I practiced, they were done completely differently, and they were done in a complete different manner. And on my language course, it was actually in the pandemic, and self-assessment part was done online, was done in a Google form, was done actually in a very in my opinion, old-fashioned format, where we just have this Google form that has choices. However, in my digital literacy course, they were done in a more open-ended form, and we had to write, we had to express our thoughts. And this had a really this made a big difference on how we assessed our own performance in the course. I'm just before I start, I just would like to note that when I just stop or something like so, I'm hearing my screen reader, which reads from notes, and which also reads the chats, and if any. So As long as I just stop talking, this means that I'm just hearing the software talking. Let me start by talking about self-assessment forms first. And self-assessment forms, I'll talk about them in those two aspects that I earlier mentioned. In my intensive English language program, it was in 2020 during the pandemic, we have really been assigned a Google form just to reflect on how we see the course and how we are performing in the class. But the way we reflected was by actually answer MCQ questions, and they were not really as detailed as possible. We haven't been able to devise our own argument and to synthesize our argument and to devise an action plan. So I imagine myself during that half of the semester where I had this form and to complete like 20 questions or something like that. I had lots of words to say. I had accommodations. I wasn't really fully aware of how to use computers and how to use Zoom. And during this early pandemic, I wasn't really tech savvy for those times. So using this form was not that best choice, and it wasn't really convenient for me as a visually impaired person, even and as a student, which are two distinct paths. As a visually impaired, I'm not able to use a screen reader. Screen readers are very expensive. The licenses for screen readers are you can't really access a license because of the pandemic, and you can't go to a premises to just download the software and so on and so forth. So self-assessment, in fact, was done in a very we had to do it in a contingent plan, or honestly, the instructor had to do it in a contingent plan, and she had to do it really without making the students the real agents for themselves. And I would like to draw on the term agency, as Dr. Maha in the keynote drew on it just quite a few moments ago. Because it was an MCQ form. So in my opinion, I would pose this question and talk about how self-assessment forms pose or enhance our learning. In my opinion, and this is how I will touch on the other course, which is the digital literacy course. In the digital literacy course, towards the midway towards the semester, we've received this long form, just not longish, just this form that has those places or those boxes to write how the course went and how we see our performance. It was also that idea that we give ourselves a grade in the course, and we also give another grade that we hope to see in the future, or we hope to reach towards the end of the semester. The reason it was better for this time was dependent on many aspects. Number one, as I said, it was emancipatory. That is, it had lots of spaces to write. It has lots of it gave us opportunities to just type in our thoughts, to just share anonymously how we feel. And it was anonymous for ourselves, but the instructor actually knew, because we gave ourselves grades and we actually wrote what we did as individual work. So the instructor knew, but actually like it was anonymous when it comes to colleagues and peers, and if the results are presented in class, no one was actually detected. It was actually better for another reason, which is that idea also that of accommodation, that I was granted the accommodation of the course, so I didn't have the issue of talking about accommodation in my self-assessment. So I didn't complain I didn't say that my performance in the course was affected by the online, as I said in the previous course. And when I said it in the previous course, it was because I lacked the training, I lacked the tools, I lacked the facilities, I lacked the premises. But now I have the course on campus, I have the support I need from the instructor, and I draw on the soft and hard deadlines that was also mentioned by Dr. Maha. And the reason I'm highlighting the keynote, by the way, is because I am attending the same class with Dr. Bali. So I'm touching on lots of themes because the way we view universal design for learning is the same way we view alternative assessment for visually impaired people. And it also links to equity and care, by the way, because like if we achieve equity, so we achieve inclusion for people with disabilities. But I'll not just deviate from this point and stick to alternative assessment and to self-assessment form and how it affected me. So during this course, also we also are given something called a 2-minute paper, and this 2-minute paper is a self-assessment form, but it is not towards the mid semester or towards the certain period of the semester. It just at the end of each class, you fill in 2 questions or 3 questions expressing what you've learned from the class. What did you see challenging, and how do you see it from your own perspective? For me as a visually impaired person, it was my my refuge, actually, because if I have something that made me upset in the class, so I do not have to go to the instructor office and share my insight. I just have to write it, and it will be taken it will be taken in consideration, and it will be considered. So also, if I have to share something sensitive and I can't share it verbally, so it will be my own gateway to just write it and leave it away. I don't want to go over time, so I'll move to the other point, which is digital narrative game. Digital narrative game for me is also a project-based alternative assessment because of multiple reasons, actually. They are a lot, but I will try to reflect on a few, actually. And for me, digital narrative games, the digital narrative game actually is devised as a project, and it has multiple phases. These multiple phases allows us as students to just divide the assignment to small components, and it's just divided for the sake of learning and for the sake of also reducing the amount of workload. When it comes to my visual impairment, I would say that the assignment was open for either to do it individually or in group. So that was actually my first notice. That was how it made it a very easy task, how it made it a very accessible task, how this project, despite the fact that it might seem very daunting and it might seem a conundrum for students to do, but being in a group work made it through through its way to be smooth, to be actually effective, and to be creative, because I might have an idea, my other group mates might have also another idea to share. So we have this idea of multiple lens incorporated into our project. I actually chose this project to be with one of my classmates, so I had incorporated this idea of different aspects. The project is also open to be done on Google Slides and Google Forms, which is also how universal design for learning is allowing up another space for creativity, another space for accessibility, because allowing multiple dimensions or multiple methods on how to do something is how to make it, is also the way to make it accessible. So I do not deal with Google Slides, and I do not deal with Google Docs, and I do not deal with Google, like those collaborative Google products, because they are not the best when it comes to accessibility. And the way I had this different ways to do this assignment allowed me to just do it equitably, to do it inclusive in an inclusive format. It also allowed me to make my choices on how to do it in this inclusive format. So if I have to do it on Google Forms, so I will omit visuals, so I will focus on the text. But if I chose to do it in Google Slides, so I would have incorporated visuals into my slides. So this is how, and as you can see, I just wrote on the slides here. I just wrote, like, it's not just an assignment, but it's a way to enhance learning. And how, and this actually enhanced learning by researching. I was able to research, I was able to go to instructor, I was able to do it differently. I was able also to use my experience. I'm doing my digital narrative game about visually impaired experience in Egyptian streets. So this in Egyptian streets and in Egyptian campuses and Egyptian life, for example, generally, I mean. So it allowed me also to incorporate my different experience. Rather, I imagine it, if it would have been more strict, if it would have been more yeah, more strict with guidelines and with rubrics and stuff, it would have been really hard for me to adapt with it. I'll move faster because I don't want to also use the time for Q&A, because I want to hear how you think about this alternative assessment when it comes to visual impairment. So I'll move on to talk about some recommendations that I give, because and I loved how the keynote also mentioned that some blind students are given actually infographics to do. And this way of infographic or of assignments makes it hard actually for blind people to ace the courses, because of many aspects. Number one, not each visually disabled person know how to deal with people. So if the visually impaired person have group work, also some people are so introvert. Some people do not know how to deal with people, how to tell them what to do and what to expect from them. So it poses another challenge for them, which is socialization. The other challenge that is resulted from this infographic assignment is how the visually impaired person will imagine the visual. So I can give the text-based content from in the infographic, but I can't really contribute to the visual, which defies the idea of equity. Actually, in my opinion, it challenges equity, it destroys equity, it doesn't build on equity, because people will have lots of work to do and I will have less work to do, and this is not really equitable when it comes to the world of academia. So I would say, like, we try to omit infographics as much as possible, but at the same time, if we have to do it, we try to divide the roles accurately between the groups, because a visually impaired apparently cannot do an infographic by himself or herself. So we try to omit this assignment, or else we try to make it as much as inclusive by making it more focused. So we give each student their role in a very accurate manner, so anyone cannot mess on something in the project. The alternatives that are proposed for this assignments are not satisfying to me, and because some people say, like, you can record yourself saying, if I would have to do this infographic, I would have done so and so, which is not actually logical. For me, it's, if I even record to you, so I didn't imagine it. We're just back in this vicious circle that I am not imagining what I will do. I don't see what I can include in this infographic, because I'm for my case and for me personally, I'm born blind since birth, so I haven't had this visual image in my mind. I didn't have this visual memory before. Another recommendation that I would give also towards the final of my presentation is that some syllabi include those assignments that are built on reading not only textual format, but being in literature, for example, graphic novels. And that's an example that pops in my head. Graphic novels are not as easy as to read. So an alternative assessment that I would give for that would be actually just to give an audio explanation by the instructor on how this graphic novel is portrayed or is painted or is written, because we cannot really deviate from that. It's just students have to learn about it, so we just alternated by video. I wouldn't talk for much because I just wanted to hear questions, if any, and I don't want to go over time. I respect time for the institute, and I hope that presentation was a kind of a glimpse to you on how it represented alternative assessment for me as a visually impaired. And for many, I haven't really delved into that much because I didn't want to bring forward to the discussion more research and more academic theories, because I'm more confident that theories will be present here in the institute, and the organizing committee did their best to provide sessions about theory and practice. But I'm here to reflect on experience, and I hope that gave you the glimpse on how it meant to me, and especially as an Egyptian, as a visually impaired in a developing country, as someone who does not have the tools and facilities at all times. So I exert efforts, I do extra work, I go the extra mile actually to achieve the academic requirements. Hopefully this presentation wasn't too long and too
Thank you, Yasser.
boring.
Thank you, Yasser. It was a great presentation. I'm reading a comment from one of the participants. Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned enjoying the 2-minute papers in one of your classes. Is there anything else that your professors have done to provide you opportunities for meaningful feedback?
Well, that's a very nice question, because I studied at rhetoric and composition departments. I studied, I said I'm in a liberal arts institution. I studied at the rhetoric and composition department in my institution. I went to my literature department, and I'm doing this course with the Center of Learning and Teaching with the core department. Actually having feedback, we use blogging. Our writing is mainly dependent on blogging. So writing comments was my main was how I received feedback, actually, and it was actually fine and accessible. But I would answer your question by saying that meaningful feedback for students with visual impairment are given by asking students how they would like to receive this feedback, because I might have meaningful feedback by a method, and a colleague of mine might have this meaningful feedback by another method.
Okay, that's
so
great.
I hope I answered this question.
You did. I'm just going to close out this session by reading a comment here. It was a great presentation, Yasser. You helped me a lot as I'm going to share your experiences with the faculty in my university.
So yeah, if you'd like, I would write here my email in the chat box. So if someone would like to reach the presentation, I'll modify the presentation with the slides. So if someone would like to reach it, they can just email me. If someone has a question, I am more than willing to answer queries and questions.
Thank you so much. Yep, we can see it in the chat box. That's perfect. Thanks,
Okay.
Yasser. We're going, if people would just close out their breakout room and return to the main session, the main room, that would be great. Thank you. Thanks very much, Yasser.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.